I don't know how to start these. I don't know how to start any of them. But welcome back to Let's Clone. My name would be Stephen French, and today we're going to get started on Minesweeper. Chose another quick title. This is going to be maybe like 3 parts. It's not going to be too much, but a lot of fun to make, and it seems a lot of people don't actually know how to play Minesweeper. So learning how to make it, you can learn how to play it, and you realize that it's a pretty fun puzzle. But for today, we can expect to build a grid, have it populate with all the numbers that we need, and just kind of display that. It's not going to get into any of the play mechanics. You're not going to be able to win or lose anything. But in part 2 and 3, we'll polish everything up just nicely. Let's go small face. Neat. So as I said, we are making Minesweeper, but I did as best I can to have as little clutter in this game as possible. So we're really only going to have 2 sprites in the whole game, and we're only going to throw in one of those for now. But make a sprite for our controller. I should be able to just load that. I just put a file on my desktop for now. Alright, there'll be more in this later on, doesn't matter. We're going to center that to 12. And let's make the object for that. I'm not going to put object in front of it because it's my controller and it's just going to control everything. We're just going to do it like that. Everything in Game Maker, most things are going to need a create event. 3 dashes gives us the ability to change the header. We're going to do initialize controller, variables. Let's see. Randomize, we're just going to do off the bat. If you remember any of the previous videos, randomize just generates, if you don't remember the videos, I guess, if you did remember, I wouldn't tell you again. Randomize is going to create a random seed for the game. So any, I guess, random things that we do will start from a different point, and you won't just get the same patterns over and over again. So we're going to randomize. We're going to set our image speed to 0. There's only one, there's only one sprite, but there will be more, so we're just going to get that out of the way now. We're going to have a number of mines. Set that to 10 because we're going to start with a small grid, and we'll make all the bigger grids at a later date. Number of rows is going to equal 8 for the same reason. And number of columns, is going to equal 8. I believe that is, we're going to throw in some more at later parts, but for right now, that's just about all we need. We're going to declare variables, and that also means we're going to declare some default variables. So we're going to have another cell size. Set this one to 16, making it a little bit more pixely. I didn't actually write down all the variables that I need. We're going to make a variable for a mine. It's going to be -1. That's just for, I don't need a semicolon there. That's just the value that we're going to put in the cell when a mine is that cell space. We need 2 different offsets, and these are offsets for our grid. I initially labeled them X and Y, but it doesn't, like, the variables will work if you call them X and Y, but it makes a little more sense like this. I believe we're going to have an offset for our border, which is 8. We're going to have an offset for our header. I'm calling it a header. I don't know if, 32. It's like the box that goes on top, where we have like our time variable, or our time counter, our flag counter, and the little face guy. Throw those into our game. Now we're going to need to draw in. We're going to need an event in here to draw the frame, but let's kind of build the room first, just so we have something to draw onto. Room, call this small. No, we're going to do 144 by 184. That looks about right to me. We have the object. So we're going to halfway into it. What was that? 77 is 72. Boop. And then 24 pixels down. That's just where we're going to put our little face right there. And we're going to draw the box around it, and then we're going to draw a box around the actual game room. So that's what we're going to do next. So we've got our object in the game. You can run it right now. You're just going to have a little face that does nothing, so I wouldn't really recommend it. Draw. And draw game room frame. I don't know if that's what we should call it. But we're going to go to our draw. Controller draw event. Always draw self if you're working with a variable or an object that you want to see on the screen. We're going to draw set our floor to a dark gray. Feel free to change the aesthetic. C_dark gray. But yes, feel free to change the aesthetic however you please. Draw set 8 line to an FA center, and a draw set vertical line to an FA center. that's just going to make sure that our text that we print is centered around whatever coordinate we give it. Now, we could draw some of the text ahead of time, but we don't really need to yet, so we're just going to draw our rectangles. So draw rectangle, and we need to give our first x coordinate and x and y coordinate, and then we're going to draw the bottom xy coordinate. So we need to come in 8 pixels from the side. That's the width that I've chosen for like the border around our frame, and we just made an offset for that. Now, this is why I call it a offset for border instead of offset for x, because we're going to use it for the x and y coordinate, and that would just be a little bit silly. But offset border, offset border, and now the y2 is going to be the width of the screen minus that offset. So room width minus offset border, and the y2 is going to be, we have the I think I made it about 32 bits or pixels, god I can't think of any words, for how big that header is going to be. So we need the y to be well, 32 plus that offset at the top. So where am I? Yes. Am I doing this right? I am doing this right. I'm going to say offset header plus offset border. And for an outline, true, because we're just going to draw that block. That, yeah. Actually, I will draw header frame, and we're going to draw game board frame, sure. Here we want a draw rectangle. Draw rectangle. God damn, I need to warm up my typing before I start these. So we're drawing a rectangle at, now this side, it's still going to be at the border, so we're going to do 8 pixels in. Offset border. This time we need to drop it down a little bit. So we actually need to go down the height of the header, and then there's going to be a border both above and below that. So we're going to do offset border times 2 plus offset header. That'll be the start there. So yeah, then here the same thing, room width or same thing as the previous rectangle. Offset border. Oh, border. And then we need the height of the room minus that 8. Room height minus offset border. And also set true for drawing just the an outline to the game, or to the rectangle. Okay. Can't speak today, can't type today. It's Christmas Eve. What do you expect? Let's get this popping up. And neat. As simple as that. You can already tell if you're familiar to Minesweep that this is going to be a Minesweep game. Now, we're going to be doing pretty much, if not actually, everything inside of our controller event. And well, we initialize the variables. We're going to actually build the grid here. Why not? Build. Okay. Build grid. Grid is going to equal to data structure grid create. What, kitty cat? We're going to have a width. The width is going to be the number of columns that we have. Number of columns. And the height is going to be the number of rows. Now we have access to these because this is in our controller create event, but you got to make sure that this line of code is underneath where we initialize those variables, otherwise we're not going to have them and we can't use them. Build grid. Cool. We now have the grid. We're going to add, I keep calling them bombs in my original game, but they're mines, because Minesweeper, not bomb sweeper. Mines to grid, and we need to do this inside of a loop. Yeah, so we need to, for variable, I chose use I, par, come on Steven, variable ii is equal to 0, as long as ii is less than number of mines. I hope I don't keep writing bombs. I'm probably going to screw that up a lot in this tutorial. I'm sorry. II plus plus. So we have 10 bombs, or 10 mines in this grid, so we're going to loop this 10 times with a little bit of some trickiness to it. So we're going to need a random variable of like that row and column size to pick a random spot, but we don't want to paste a bomb into the same location twice. Or actually, since it's random, it's possible for all 10 of these iterations to choose the same 2 random variables, and then we just have bombs in one spot on the grid. So we don't want that. So we need to keep that in mind so we can ignore it or avoid it. So we're going to do an x is equal to instance random. Yes. Throw an e. Me at the end of that. I don't know what's going on. Instance random of number of columns -1, and a variable for our y position, random of number of rows -1. Now, these are always square grids because in, I guess, traditional original Minesweep, there's an 8x8, a 16x16, a 24x24. And those are all the sizes we're going to be using, so we could just use one variable for the rows and columns. But I wonder if anybody would be ambitious enough to take this project and then make a custom board size, and that would be neat to see, so I'm leaving you guys some room to do that. So we need a... How did I lose my spot already? All right, there we are. So we're going to say if grid... Now grid works a lot like an array. If we use this exclamation point, or no, not exclamation, if we use a pound sign or hashtag, then we can use it as an accessor to read or write to this location. So at x, y, if it is equal to mine, then we need, I'm sorry, if it's not equal to mine, then we need to set that position to mine. Grid accessor x, y is equal to mine. And mine is just -1. We could just make it -1. It's just nice to have that word for, I don't know, us to see it. So we're setting that position to -1. Now what happens if that is not, or if that position is already a mine? We need to rerun that cycle of this iteration. So say I equals 0, we pick a random spot, we put a mine there. I equals 1, pick a random spot, happens to be the same thing. We don't want to just move on because then that's the issue we just went over. So else all we're going to do is I minus minus. We're just going to, it's like, all right, I equals 0, we pick a spot, bang, there it is. It updates to 1 and then it starts a loop again because it runs this I plus plus at the end of the loop. So it's like, all right, now I equals 1, we already have a mine there. We don't want to ignore it. We don't want to move right on to I equals 2, so we're going to set it back to 0. It's the end of the loop, gets incremented back up to 1. We're running that same iteration again. So now we just have 10 mines across the board. We could jump in and test that. I don't want to, so we're not going to. Come down to our end here, and we're going to update cell values. We're going to need to loop through the entire grid because we need to look at every single cell. So we're going to do for, why am I adding these and shit? Variable, let's start with y's or x's. We'll start with x's. Is equals 0, xx is less than number of columns, xx plus plus, make that a loop. Now inside of that loop we're going to run a nested loop. Far, wow guy, let's see how awful I can spell today. Yy is equal to 0, yy is less than numbers, struggling, yy plus plus. Cool, now this will just run a loop that'll check, well, it'll hit all the numbers that are correlated to our cell positions. Okay, so if grid at this position, xx, yy, is not equal to mine, that means that it needs to be either a number or a 0. Variable number of touching. This would be a temporary variable that we can iterate through here. Now, we're going to be doing some stuff. We're going to do if this, then this, and it's going to happen for a while. We're going to do a bunch of it, and we're going to add up how many times, like we're going to increment number of touching by 1 every time that one of those adjacent positions is a bomb, and then we're going to assign it back to that grid value. So I'm going to skip ahead, assign that number, and then we're going to go through and write the code that does the actual searching. So grid at this position, xx, yy, is equal to number of touching. Keep in mind this is only, like this is happening after we've already assigned the bombs. So on the 10 cells for the small version that are not a bomb, we're just going to skip it. We don't want to change that value at all. But this part kind of sucks. It's a little bit tedious, and I just want to make sure what I wrote down. Yeah, we're going to be good. So we need to check 8 different positions. Now, it's a little bit of a clunky code. I've done cleaner things when making auto-tiling scripts for, we might get into auto-tiling for some of the future clones, but we're not going to go about this in a super clever way. We're going to clunk it out, make it easy to understand, although it will be a little bit more code. But we're going to check top left first. I'm just going to go across. So if grid at, so top left, that's going to be x minus 1 and y minus 1. So x minus 1, y minus 1 is equal to mine. Now all we need to do here is if that is equal to mine, number of touching plus plus. I actually don't want to waste a lot of space with all these extra new line characters and curly braces, so we're not gonna. And we're gonna do this in a pretty off way because I love copy paste even though I shouldn't. So we have top left, middle, or top right, we've got left, we've got right, we've got bottom left, we've got bottom middle, we've got bottom right. Those are all of our positions, and we always need to increase number of touching if they end up actually being a mine. So we've got the top left. Now we're just going to check our top, which will just be x, y minus 1. We're going to check our top right, which is going to be x plus 1 minus 1. You can read it. X plus 1 minus 1, I'm sorry. We're going to check just the left, so it'll be x minus 1, y. We're going to check just our right, which would be in x plus 1, y. We're going to check, we'll get rid of that. We're going to check the bottom left, which will be an x minus 1, but a y plus 1, because in GameMaker, y increases as you go down. So the 0, 0 position is going to be the top left part of your screen. Then we're going to check just the bottom, which means our x will be just as is, and y plus 1. And then we're going to check the bottom right, which would be x plus 1, y plus 1. And then we're going to assign cell value by setting it equal to number touching. All right, so effectively we do have a grid that is set up for Minesweeper. The values, rather, of this grid are, they're all correct. There's going to be a mine set at -1, and all the adjacent numbers are going to be a number that is relative to how many bombs they're touching, or it'll be 0 if it's not touching any. But we can't really see them yet. So before we play the game, which you can test it out, you'll get a bug or an error if anything goes wrong, then we want to actually draw the numbers into those positions. So we're going to say draw cell values, but we need a loop first, because we're going to have to access all of these cells. So variable xx is equal to 0. Oops. Xx is less than number of columns, and xx plus plus. Put those inside some curly braces. Another for loop of variable yy is equal to 0. Yy is less than number of rows, yy plus plus. Now we need to draw each position in one offset to where the border of the frame is, and also we need to put them at one cell width apart. So I did, well, yeah, this is just going to be one thing. So we're going to do draw text. That's going to be at xx times cell size, which is 16. Plus we need to add the border, so it's offset border. And then we also, this would draw to the top left corner of each cell. We want to draw into the middle of each cell, so we're going to do again the cell size, but this time divided by 2. Now if you recall PEMDAS, or order of operations, it's going to do any multiplication or division first. So it's going to multiply those together, add this value to it. These will already be multiplied together, and then add it to that. So just like we're adding 16 at the end of this point. That is going to be where we draw, I guess, the x coordinate of the cell. We're going to have y, and it's going to do the same thing, but it needs to do multiply by cell size. I just want to make sure. I could be off on this one if I change some things around, but we're going to fix it if it's not. So we're going to plus offset header. I think I also need to add more to that. Maybe, I'm not sure. Same thing with the plus cell size divided by 2. And then we're going to give it the value that we want to print, which is our grid accessor at xxyy. Close that off with a semicolon, and let's give that Well, I never stopped it before. Let's give that a little click. See if our game is correct, and we can kind of look through and see what is what. All right. So yeah, I was off by a little bit because I forgot that there's an 8 here and an 8 there. So we need, so we're adding the cell size, or we're, I guess, jumping by a cell size every time. But we also need everything to come down by 16 more pixels. So we're going to plus because we have 2 borders. There's a border and then a header and then a border. So we got to account for both of those borders. So offset border times 2. And gimme. Good. So everything is lined up. Now, this does nothing yet. Clicking does nothing. We have no functionality. We just have a grid full of numbers. But if you look through and you see this -1, this is the bomb. So any number that is touching it will have at least a 1. So this is a 1 because it's the only one touching. This is the only one touching that. So that is also fair. This one's a 2, meaning it must be touching 2 bombs. And you can find the other one right here. Also 2, touching 2 of them. 4 looks like the largest number we have. So with a 4, it is touching this bomb, this bomb, this bomb, and this bomb. And it's 4. You can kind of scan through and verify that everything is correct. Now, you might have noticed that we're getting a bunch of out of bounds exceptions. This is something that can be cleaned up in code, but I honestly think it doesn't matter. If anyone, well, I guess if anyone has the answer to this mattering or not, then they probably aren't following a tutorial on it. But to kind of, I guess, defend my point here, is we've created this grid and the error is happening at this part. It's in our draw cell value. Because at some point in this, x is going to equal 7 because it's less than number of columns, which is 8. And all arrays or all data values, we're going to start counting at 0. So when we have cells, 8 of them, we're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is no cell 8 because 0 is 1. Now, say we're at the end of this. This is the very last bit of the loop. So xx is equal to 7 and yy is equal to 7. We're checking the very last cell. We're then checking all of the adjacent spaces. So we're checking for grid at position 8 and grid at position 8. Those don't exist, but we don't care if they exist. We just want a confirmation. So when we try to check if grid at, and this is, this is just like saying grid at position 8, 8, which would be an error. If it is equal to a mine, we want to do something else. If it doesn't exist, then it doesn't equal a mine. So it's popping an error saying that we're trying to look out of bounds, which we are, but that gives us a fail. It gives us a value of false, which is the one that we desire. So you have some outputs down here, and we can avoid that with some more clever code, but it doesn't break for me. If there is any concern, I can throw it apart and we can clean that up. But just to keep it simple, we left it there. And I'm sorry to ramble so much about supporting the utilization of bugs in a game. I don't know. Sorry for that little bit of rambling, guys. This is just a simple part 1 to Minesweeper. It is Christmas Eve, and I really got no plans for the holidays, so I'm going to be working on my next project, and I'm going to be uploading these parts of Minesweeper on the way. But just for, I guess, a little notice about what's to come, Minesweeper will be in probably 3 parts. I don't think I would need any more than that, and they'll be spaced out maybe every 2 to 3 days, so we have some content throughout the holiday week. But in my off time, I'm also making a clone of Enter the Gungeon. Not a true clone, although none of these end up being true clones. I give them, I guess, a little bit of a change, or I skip out on some things deliberately. But Enter the Gungeon isn't going to be like playing Enter the Gungeon. I'm going to make a little kind of battle arena where I'm going to grab a couple of the characters and local co-op playing with the controller, fighting off against each other. But it's going to be a tedious project. It's going to take me a little while to finish. And there's going to be a lot of really like sketchy code in it, and I don't know if I'm going to make a tutorial series of it or just update some like development logs about it. So I'm going to be playing with that. Keep an eye out for that content. And if anybody at the end really wants a tutorial on how to make something like that, then maybe I'll piece together a clone for it. If not, when I'm done with Minesweeper and I'm done with the, I guess, homage to Enter the Gungeon, then I'm going to be working on another probably platformer, maybe Super Mario Bros. We'll find out from there. But thank you so much for watching. I am stoked to be making these videos, and I'm going to keep making them. So if you like them, please like, comment, let me know what you think. If you have any questions about the code, if you have any suggestions on future games, and if you know anybody else that's interested, send them a link, share it out. What, kitty cat? Thank you much. Happy holidays.